welcome back to my channel. Sorry it's been a while since I've posted any videos. I've been ill over the Christmas period, so just sort of getting back into routine. And a video that I've been meaning to make for a while is a comparison of alcohol markers. They're a bit of a minefield. Certainly those of us who are more at the fine art end of the scale, who don't do an awful lot of card making and so on, usually see people using Copic markers, and occasionally people using ProMarkers, and occasionally people using Spectrum Noir, and what's the difference? Now, in the UK, alcohol markers are not as easy to get hold of. The full range is not stocked really anywhere. Just to give you an example, the big box store Hobbycraft near to where I live stocks Spectrum Noir, limited range of Spectrum Noir. My local art shop stocks ProMarker and Brushmarker, which is the same pen just with a different nib, and they stock Copic Chow. They don't stock the other Copics. The Copics are a little bit harder to get hold of in the UK. They're a Japanese brand. They're a little bit trickier to get hold of in the UK. Whereas ProMarker are made by Winsor & Newton, which are a UK brand, and Spectrum Noir, I don't know who actually manufactures them, but I think it's Crafter's Companion, and we get most of their stuff in the UK. In terms of cost, it's very variable. Now, I could do a huge video about like cheapest ways to use alcohol markers, but within Copics, most crafters that I know on YouTube use Copic Sketch. That's the line that they use. Copic Wide and Copic Original are really only used by manga artists and graphic artists, and Copic Chow are kind of the entry level in inverted commas range, and the reason these are cheap is simply their size. They don't hold as much ink. So unless you're planning to use absolutely gallons and do refills constantly, these are actually the most economical. Now, okay, you don't get as many colours in this range as you get in Copic Sketch, but to be honest, as a card maker, you're not going to need that many colours. I find it frankly laughable sometimes when I see videos of card makers who've got all 300 and something Copic colours, and I think realistically, when you make a few cards a month, how many of those are you actually using? And just to give you an idea of pricing, Copic Sketch come in sets of 72, and 72 costs about £250. So to get the whole lot, you're looking at, you know, well over £1,000 worth of stuff that you're just not going to use. So you're better off buying a smaller number of colours that you're actually going to make use of. And the art of alcohol markers is that they blend. So you need blending series, and what I like about ProMarker is they sell them in blending series. Copic you can buy in blending series. Spectrum Noir you can buy in what I call pseudo blending series. Spectrum Noir you can buy in packs like this. So the way Spectrum Noir are marketed is you can't buy them individually, you can only buy them in packs, and you can buy them in two types of pack. You can buy them in sets of 6, these sort of quasi-blending series, as I call them, and you can buy them in packs of 25, and there's no overlap. So you have to buy all the 6 packs and all the 25 packs to get the entire series. So you've got 100 and something, 190 something I think there are. So it's 4 packs of 25 and 12 packs of 6, I think, make up the whole thing. Maybe it's 172 in the whole series, and I got all of the 6 packs really cheap recently in a deal that I'll link in the video description, and I'll try and find a US equivalent to it as well. And I've since bought one of the 25 packs because of this reason. If you look at what pens are actually included, you've got Citrus Green 1, Dull Green 2 and 4, Citrus Green 2, Dull Green 3 and Jade Green 6. Nowhere in there is an actual full series. You've got 1 and 2, 2, 3 and 4 and a 6, and they don't blend well at all, because if you actually look on their colour charts, all the kind of in-between colours are not even in the same pack of 25. For some of the series like the Coral Red series, if you buy the red pack and the pink pack, I think that they're sold as, and then you buy the Pastels pack, so the 25 packs come as Pastels, Lights, Brights and Darks. If you buy the Pastels pack and then you look at the colour chart, you have every other colour in a series of 11, I think it is. So you're basically unable to get the whole series of 11 Coral Reds without buying 4 25 packs that sell for about £30 and 2 6-packs as well. So to get an actual full blending series of Spectrum Noir is actually really expensive. So I've got a few Spectrum Noirs out, and I've got those here. ProMarker you can buy in blending series, and you can buy them individually, and they have a lot of colours. I really like them. I think they're very economical. They hold a lot more ink than I think any of the Copics do, and they seem to last a long time. The kind of catch with all these pens is actually the inks are all really similar. They're all isopropanol based, not ethanol based as many people think they are. They stink of isopropanol, and I think some of them have got a little bit of glycerine in, some haven't. That's where they vary. But the real difference is what nibs they have. Now, Spectrum Noir have a chisel nib on one end and a bullet nib on the other. And that is a bit crap, because for a lot of card making you want a brush nib, and that's why Copic Sketch and Copic Chow, which have the same nibs, are quite popular. They have a chisel on one end and a brush on the other. And by brush I mean a brush nib, not like an actual brush like real brush markers by Zig have. ProMarker, which are now Winsor & Newton, these are a few years old, have a big chisel tip on one end and a bullet tip on the other, and to meet the needs of the crafting community they launched the Brushmarker as well. And just let me get the right one. So this is meadow green, and in exactly the same colour I can get a Brushmarker which has got a chisel on one end exactly the same as the other, so there's no difference at that end at all. They're exactly the same. Let me just put the right one on the right lid on the right one. And whereas that one's got a bullet tip on the standard ProMarker, you get a brush nib on the Brushmarker. And my own experience of different types of markers, actually blending markers, blending pens for use with coloured pencil, like the Derwent blender pens, is they do two. They do a big one and a small one. And when I was using them, I actually emailed Derwent and said, look, I'm getting really different results. One of these blends better than the other. Have they got the same stuff in them? And they said, yeah, it's just because the nibs are made of a slightly different material. One's a little bit more abrasive than the other. And I think that's something that often happens with card making, is that actually a brush nib will give you different blending to a bullet tip just because of the way that it abrades the ink that's already on the paper. The other thing that is really important is what paper you're using, and I thought I'd do a comparison on some different papers and compare these different pens on different papers to give you a really full comparison. So let me just put these pens in here. Now, you must always store alcohol markers horizontally, and I scream at the YouTube when I see, I love these tin cans, they're really cute, when I see some quite popular and quite well-known crafters storing them in that kind of manner all the time in their craft rooms. It just pisses me off, because you're going to ruin them. They need to be stored horizontally, otherwise the ink pools at one end, and when you open one lid you get a dry pen, and when you open the other end ink fires out. So in terms of what papers I've got, I have Yupo paper here, which is a plastic paper, and I've stamped all of them with a butterfly. It's from Tim Holt's Reflections set, and I've stamped them in Memento Tuxedo Black. Now, this butterfly is not going to dry on Yupo, because Yupo, you can see it's still wet. This is where I've done alcohol ink on the alcohol inks on the back, and I just wanted to use up these scraps. So I will brush off the excess wet ink, because I don't want Memento getting into my markers, but I wouldn't mind keeping that general butterfly shape. I might not actually, I could heat set it, but I've just brushed off the wetness. It should be okay to draw over. The hallowed Neenah Solar White that a lot of the American crafters really love, I have here. I have some standard blending, sort of premium white cardstock that you would get in a UK craft store. I have some Bristol board, which is Daler & Rowney, and I have some marker paper, which is also Daler & Rowney. And we'll start on this one, and we'll just do probably the most basic blend that you would ever see, which is the sort of light, medium, dark blend that people do. So people will lay down a light colour, and then they will go over part of it with either a medium or a dark. And then after blending that with a medium, they will go back with their lightest colour and sort of blend it out. And that, if you do it properly, you can get a reasonably good 3-colour blend. I'm really far away from the camera here, but I'll hold them up so that you can see them a little bit later on. So that was with Copic brush. If I go to Brushmarker, which is the sort of next equivalent, and I've only got, what I did is I specifically went out and got brush markers in colours that I already had in ProMarker. So if I lay down that one, which I will tell you what the colours are in a minute, and put down the dark one over the top, and then I like to do circles to sort of blend the two together. So that was a blend of lipstick red and straight red, and of the two I would say red is the darker one, but there's not much in it. They're actually really very similar, so you get a quite subtle blend between the two. Exactly the same 2 colours in ProMarker, so bullet tip but same ink. And what you really have to do whenever you do these is let them dry, because you can never quite tell how good they are when they're wet. So I'm now going to do a meadow green and a apple green. Meadow being the lighter one of the two. And it's important when you do this that you always get the paper really wet, which is why I'm doing this on marker paper first, because on marker paper these will stay wet for a long time. It's the way marker paper is designed. It's got a hell of a lot of sizing so that they will stay that way. And using the same pair of inks but in a different pen format. And the important thing is to not let them dry in between. You really want to keep the sort of smoothness of the blend going. And then the Spectrum Noirs, I've got a couple of different series here actually. This is the Hydrangea Blue series, which is a series of 3. 1, 2, 3, and I'll do these with their bullet tips to make it kind of... Actually no, I won't. I'll do it with the chisel tips because it'll be an interesting comparison. And I'll do it as a 3-part blend again, like I did with one of the others. That's the dark one. Then the medium one, I'm just going to use the small nib because I want to do circles. And then the light one again. Now I think there's a bit too big a jump between these colours. I don't think that they're going to give a brilliant blend, but we'll see. You have to let them dry. You can't judge whether they've blended properly until they're dry, which I find difficult. I've also got a citrus yellow set of 4 here, which I will also lay down. And you can watch a million different videos, and I will link to, in the iCards, some really good videos on blending techniques so that you can learn how to do it properly from people like Draw with Jazza and some of the other fantastic YouTubers who are really good at this. I'm not. I don't claim to be. What I wanted to do is give you a comparison of 4 brands, or 4 lines of pen. I'll just move this up so you can see that. So I've done a dark to light blend there. And what you'll always find with all of these is they all sell a blender pen, a colourless blender, which is not actually a blender, it's more of an eraser. So if you wanted to lift some colour, some of the companies talk about that it's like you're pushing it through the paper. Often you're actually picking it up on the tip of the blender. can be useful for adding texture. So for example, I'm just scribbling off the ink that's transferred. If I wanted to make this green look a bit like animal fur or something, or snake skin, I can put dots all over it and they will dry outwards, just like dripping alcohol onto watercolour paint will give you. So these are just isopropanol markers. They have really two purposes. One is kind of erasing or lightening. The other one is preparing. So sometimes if you want to get a blend and you don't have a really light colour, what you can do is scribble with one of these onto the paper quite a lot to get it really wet before you go onto it with your colour, and that will make it a bit easier sometimes to get a good blend because you've already wetted the area, and that will help stop it drying out. So if you're in a really hot environment or a particularly dry environment, scribbling with a colourless blender can really help. Now if you buy ProMarkers in blending sets, you always get a colourless blender in every single set. So you end up with a lot of colourless blenders. I keep them because I find use for them somewhere. You don't need to buy a different blender for different pen types. So if you have Copics and you buy some ProMarkers, you can use the same blending pen on all of them. You don't need to kind of worry about that. So I'll just hold these up so you can see them. Got some of the red blends there. That's a 3-colour blend. It's not a very good blend. I don't like this paper very much. You can see where I put those spots on that it's lifted. You can see I got a good blend there because it was really wet, and the same there. And what I wanted to do was to do a comparison of how these work on different papers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to redo that yellow blend, that citrus yellow blend, and I'm going to redo that on each of the different stocks that I have in front of me. So the next one is Bristol board, which is a layered paper. It's made up of layers. That's what Bristol means in this context. It's made up of layers, kind of laminated together. And I'm going to do, again, the fat end. And because Bristol paper, or Bristol board correctly, is coated, you can actually throw a lot of ink onto it without it soaking in too far. And we'll just let that dry for a moment because it will be very wet. You will find the alcohol will go through Bristol board, but it will take a while to dry because it's a shiny paper. You can see that. Standard cardstock now. This is not like a photocopier cardstock. This is a card making cardstock, and you can see it soaks in. You can, as you do it, you can really tell that it's sort of disappearing into the fibres. Often I hear people asking, can I use alcohol markers on watercolour paper? Well, you could, but if you do that, they're going to soak up the ink like crazy, and you're going to find that you're just going to waste ink. So I personally wouldn't do it. And this is the hallowed Neenah Solar White that all of the Americans rave about being this amazing paper for blending. And this is the classic Crest Super Smooth, or whatever they call it, finish. And I do find that the ink, again, it soaks in a bit. It's not like Bristol or marker paper where it stays absolutely soaking wet for ages. And if you speak to the sort of non-crafters, they're quite particular about what they use as well, and they will very often only use Copic cardstocks from Copic, regardless of which markers they actually use, and I have to say that that one does give a better blend really than any of the others. That one has already given a really obvious and clean light to dark blend there. So you've got dark yellow going over to a light yellow there, and that was pretty easy to do. And now Yupo. Now on Yupo it won't dry, so the tip with Yupo is to start dark and work to light. Sounds illogical, but it actually works. And you can use Yupo kind of as a palette actually, which I'll show you in a minute, with alcohol markers. I'm kind of doing this in the opposite direction to the last few. I'm actually going light this way just because that's how I did it. If you wanted to, and you can do this with alcohol markers, if you wanted to try and make a mixed colour, for example, let's just say I wanted to take this hibiscus purple and mix it with the yellow, which will give me a shitty grey, onto this Neenah, what I can do is pick it up and then colour it, and then that will give me that weird mixed brown. So what I can do is I can put one colour down, and because it won't dry, I can lift it up with another and then lay it back down again. If you do that, scribble it off on paper to remove what you've just done, otherwise you'll ruin the nibs of your pens. So Yupo's not going to dry easily, but you can kind of see there's a dark to light blend on there. Yupo can be an interesting one if you just want to experiment really. Let's have a look at these other ones. So Neenah Solar White has given us a really lovely dark to light blend. It's kept its luminance, and it was really easy to do. Standard cardstock, messy, you can see the lines, you can see the divisions between the bits, and it was harder to get a good blend. Bristol board is a good blend. You can see that that's come out pretty clean, dark to light. There's no obvious lines. It's soaked through though, so it's a bit wasteful. Marker paper, again, you've got a good dark to light there. It will take an absolute age to dry because it's marker paper, and that's what marker paper does. So I would say that of these, Neenah Solar White is indeed worth the money. It's not cheap, but it is worth it. And I'm going to colour in this butterfly that I stamped in Memento on Neenah Solar White, just to show you that these different markers can be used together. So I'm going to use the Hibiscus Blue, first of all, series, and I'm going to do, I mean, I say they're a blue, they're really sort of lilac, and I'm not going to worry about the pattern of the bloody butterfly. I'm just going to go straight over it. If I remember, I will link to Mrs. Vierick, Lindsay the Frugal Crafter, in the iCards, because she has a butterfly she did with Spectrum Noir markers a while ago to make a card that was really beautiful and really easy to do using the Turquoise Blue series of markers, and that went really well. So I'm not doing this neatly. I'm not apologising for that either. I'm just trying to show you how the different markers will still work together. So, oops, I'm I'm so sorry, I've just realised you've been totally out of focus the whole time. So I've just done Hibiscus Blue blend there, and I'm now going to go over to Copic, where I've only got 2 markers, and I'm going to do the bottom part of the wings, and this is a brush nib which a lot of people find easier. I find them a bit haphazard, if I'm really honest. And you can always go around and tidy up the edges later. I like people like Jen Maguire, who will very often be colouring with Copics for a card, and so they're going to cut the butterfly or whatever out, so they don't bother doing it remotely neatly and go over all the lines, because they know that when they've finished it they're going to cut round it, so it won't matter. And I might use this one for something, I don't know, doubt it. So I'm going over the lines because, you know, it's my butterfly. If I want to go over the lines, I will go over the lines. The only people who moan about that are the same people who moan every fucking video. Tidy your desk. Bog off. My desk. If I want it to look like this, it will look like this. Tidy your own desk if you're that bothered. This is the weirdest coloured butterfly. And then I will use the brush markers from ProMarker, or Winsor & Newton as they trade as. And I will do apple first, I think. It's important when you're working with them, however you do it, to work in small areas, because they dry out, and if that pool of ink dries, it won't ever blend. And just to make a point, I will show you that if I were to take the red, the light red and the light red ProMarker and throw some down, and then take the dark red Copic, put it over the top, and then go back, blend the two together. They blend perfectly. So it doesn't matter which manufacturer you get them from, the inks will blend. So don't believe any of the marketing bollocks that the companies will tell you. They do blend with each other. They are all the same. They are all just solutions of alcohol and ink. Some of them got a little bit of glycerine in them as well, just to help them blend and help them not dry out immediately. There is otherwise really no difference. So if you just want to look at how nice those purple blends are there, I think the purple dark to light blend is really very pretty there, and as is that sort of dark red to light red and the yellow there. So some really pretty colours in there, but that was because I used the series that were close together. Now if I were to use a series or just do my blend as the dark one and the light one, you'll see even though these are only a step of 2 apart, if I throw down some hibiscus light and then put on it some hibiscus dark and then try and blend that out, it will kind of blend. But I find it really hard to get a soft blend because you're doing a big jump. That's the problem with the way Spectrum Noir are sold. Instead of selling you a green set that contains greens 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they sell you a set that's got 3 from one series, 2 from another, 1 from another, and it's just stupidity because they are never going to blend really, really well. You can see there the difference when I've got a big jump there versus three colours: smooth blend, jumpy blend. Yeah. So if you want to get a smooth blend, you need multiple colours close together. I've seen some of the really shit hot sort of graphic artists use 4 or 5 colours to get a really smooth blend, and you can do that if you want. But let's be honest, most people who are card making are working on a pretty small scale, so that can be quite difficult. Just look on the back of this Neenah Solar White, you can see how much actually goes through. So what I did to protect my work area, and this might be a tip, is I put down a piece of marker paper, because marker paper fairly impermeable, because I'm doing this Spin Doctor surgery painting. At the moment I just kind of stopped while it was drying overnight to do this video, and yeah, that protects the working area because it doesn't go through that quite so easily. So you do want to make sure you protect the area. Remember, to get your money's worth out of your alcohol markers, remember what else you can use them for. You can take, if you use sequins on cards, don't buy coloured sequins, buy white sequins and colour them with alcohol markers. They will look exactly the same and it will save you a load of money. You can do the same with those little stick-on gem embellishments, buy the clear ones and colour them with alcohol markers. It won't rub off, it's the whole point of alcohol markers, but remember, they don't come off. So if you put it on the wrong surface, like if you get it on a stencil or you get it on a stamp, it is going to ruin things. So you do have to be pretty careful with it, but that's just my 2 pennies worth. So really I wanted to make this video just to show you that there is no difference really in terms of quality, in my view, between Spectrum Noir, Copic, ProMarker and Brushmarker. Where the difference lies is the material the nibs are manufactured from. And if it were up to me, I would only ever use ones with brush nibs. Lindsay, the frugal crafter, gave me the tip that brush nib markers tend to blend better when colouring in stamped images and so on, and it's absolutely true, they do. And I think that's the abrasiveness of the brush tip versus the bullet tip and the size of it that allows that. So Spectrum Noir may not be the best choice for a lot of you because of the type of colouring you want to do and the type of cardstock you want to do it on. You might find that actually the brush tipped pens are better, in which case find out what's cheaper in your area. If you can get Brushmarker cheap or Copic Chow cheap, get those. No point getting Copic Sketch really, because you can refill these anyway. All Copics are refillable, so I can refill these, and the only difference is I'd have to refill it more often. Now that doesn't make it cost any more money. All that means is it physically holds less ink. So if I was colouring in huge areas in the same colour every single day, it might get a tiny bit annoying, and it might mean it's worth having a Copic Sketch. But if you look at how many times they fill, these fill 9 times, and I think Copic Sketch fills 12 times. So it's really from one bottle of ink. So it's not going to make much difference to how long it takes before they run out. It's going to be a tiny difference. And original Copics are 15 times. So they might make a bit of a difference, but they don't have brush nibs. You have to buy a brush nib separate for those pens. ProMarkers, to my knowledge, you can't refill, but they're so cheap it doesn't actually matter. And you can refill them with Copic inks actually, so you could just do that. But they hold a lot of ink and they're pretty economical. Just to give you an idea of price, a set of 6 Spectrum Noirs will set you back about £10 in the UK. I got 12 6-packs for £60, so I paid about, whatever that is, about £5 a set for those. ProMarkers in my local art shop and Brushmarkers are £1.99 at the moment, and Copic Chow are £2.50. So not an enormous difference in price, but ProMarker hold more ink, and ultimately I just get on with them better, probably because I've used them for longer. So that's my 2 pennies worth really on Copics and other alcohol markers. But I'm not a Copic fanboy. I'm not a fanboy of any of these brands, to be honest. Buy the colours you want in whatever is cheapest at the time. If you want a pale blue and you go in the art shop and you see that Copic are on sale, buy Copic. If you want a pale blue and Spectrum Noir are on sale, buy Spectrum Noir. There is really no need to stick to one brand. Buy the cheapest. Simple as that. Don't waste your money. Thank you very much and good evening.